Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and it's been a solid 10 years since Iron Man 1 graced the silver screen, launching the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and after all this time, we finally have a definitive timeline of events to lay out the entire course of the MCU. And I'm joined today by my friend, Louis Lecca, aka Nuke the Fridge. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, Matt? Thanks for having me up here again.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to keep you on more often because we have some good conversations. And so you and me, we're both big MCU guys.
Oh yeah,
And we talked about that quite a bit, and we like to see
literally
what's.
big. I'm like about 250 pounds.
Oh, hey, sorry, what?
Literally big too, because I'm about 250 pounds, but that's it.
You don't look over 249, sir.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
That's right. That's definitely true. But okay, so Marvel has been kind of cagey about the whole timeline of the MCU, right? Like we know it launched in 2008. They've kind of hinted that it was in 2008, but then there's times where the persistent timeline of events has been a little bit little bit murky. The biggest kind of one on this one is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 that took place 3 months after the events of the first one. Versus, the 3 years that it took to make the damn movie. And then, of course, there's the Spider-Man Homecoming gaffe, which I think threw everyone for a damn loop.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. But we've got 10 years. It's got to be a little bit of questionable questions, and I guess Marvel's trying to answer the timeline now, and they did through this article.
Well, they did through, yeah. So Screenrant got their hands apparently on the Marvel First 10 Years book, or a leaked version of it that apparently has the official timeline. And so this is what we start off with here. 1943 to 1945 was Captain America: The First Avenger, which does make sense.
Yep.
The leading into the ending days of the war. But this is where it's weird. 2010 is apparently when Iron Man was set. That kind of threw me off. That threw me off. Yeah, I thought it was 2000. I mean, I thought they had established it was 2008. Like there was another movie. Just because there's been 20 of these goddamn films. I can't remember which one it was, but they had referenced it would have been 2014, I think, because it was like 6 years or something like that, where it had been like I think it was it might have been 2016 Captain America: Civil War or something. No, that would have been was it Avenger? No, I don't know. I don't know which one it was. But it was one of the ones where they had mentioned like it had been a year, and that year corresponded with like 2008. But then again, they're kind of altering things to keep it in a persistent timeline, because Iron Man 2 and the Incredible Hulk and Thor, even though the Incredible Hulk came out in 2008, they have it apparently set here in the 2011 timeline, which kind of makes sense that they did that because Iron Man 2 is also in that timeline, right? And if you go back to the end of the stinger at the end of the Incredible Hulk, you've got what was it, Stryker?
Yeah, he shows up and he talks about, what does he talk about again?
He says we're putting together a team. We're putting together a team, right? Or there's something I want to talk to you about. And then that, of course, plays off of the infamous, Nick Fury stinger at the end of the first Iron Man. But given the ending of Iron Man 2, when he joins up with S.H.I.E.L.D. as a consultant, it does make sense that then he would then go and talk to, William Ross. I don't know why I said Stryker. William Ross, at the end of that one, that would make more sense. Now, also at the same time, Thor takes place in the same year, which is funny because that's the only movie that was released in 2011 that apparently ties into the same year it was released. Then you've got 2012 is the Avengers, which makes sense. And also Iron Man 3. And that's a little bit weird to me because Iron Man 3 obviously came out a year later and it was dealing with the aftermath of that. It was all, Tony's PTSD and everything, but they'd never established the exact amount of time from the attack on New York. But I'm guessing it was, okay, actually, hold on. If Avengers happened in May of 2012, this would have been Christmas 2012, right?
Yeah.
And so, because it's a Shane Black movie, so it's Christmas.
Movie, yeah.
So to me, that makes it seem like there was obviously a, that would be the connection to that. That would actually make a lot more sense. That would be the timeline for it. And then, of course, 2013 is Thor: The Dark World, And sure, I guess that's like probably the most forgettable of all the Marvel movies is Thor: The Dark World.
I like those Thor movies.
No, I do too. I thought Thor: The Dark World was really good in terms of like the Loki Thor dynamic, and you could tell that they had just purchased Lucasfilm and ILM the year earlier, because you're looking at the graphics that they used for Thor, and it just looked like a lot better. You know, like when they're in Asgard, and it looks like you're watching a Star Wars movie. It does. You can even hear. You can even. But in Thor: The Dark World, when there's the assault on Asgard, you can actually hear, I think, TIE fighter sound effects. Like there's an Easter egg in there somewhere. That's what my brain remembers, but I could have heard it wrong. We got 2014 is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Guardians Volume 2, and all three of those make sense. It might have been The Winter Soldier that mentioned like the 6-year man. I don't know. It's one of those movies that talked about the 6 years. But those all make sense for 2014 for Guardians, especially Guardians 2 being, a couple years later. Because I thought if Groot would have been growing in real time, right, then like Guardians Volume 2 taking place in 2017 would just make a lot of sense. But I remember, I don't know about you, but I was a little bit pissed off when I found out that Guardians Volume 2 kind of like nuked the timeline a little bit. It just, I don't know, it just bothered me. It was stupid. It was a stupid thing to bother me about, but it did. Yeah. Then we got 2015 is Avengers Age of Ultron and Ant-Man.
Now, in Age of Ultron, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it seems like you have all these memorized, but didn't Tony Stark get rid of all his suits in
he did that was 3 years prior, right?
So he never explained what really happened.
Well, I mean, I think we've learned that he can kind of just make suits. So he destroyed all of his suits and stopped being Iron Man in Iron Man 3, and then in Avengers Age of Ultron he's back as Iron Man, and there was never any explanation as to why.
So that's like something that's never been explained in a possible maybe movie or book in the future could happen.
Not that I remember, and I could be entirely wrong. And it's possible somebody in the comment section will be like, no, this is the reason it happened. And I'll be like, okay, thank you for schooling me on that one. But I don't really remember there being an explanation for him, But then again, think about this. If in the timeline, it's a 3-year gap. Yeah. So he could easily rebuild, he built up the Hulkbuster, because we saw the Hulkbuster in Iron Man 3. Right. We saw it, but he rebuilt it, and, maybe Nick, I think at that time. Okay. Well, okay. Think about it like this, right? Think about it like this. Iron Man 3 happens. Okay. And SHIELD is still doing SHIELD's thing. SHIELD is still protecting the world. Right.
Right.
So he goes, look, I'm done. I did my part. I saved the world 6 months ago. I want to be married. I want to be I'm done. I don't want to do this. Okay. So he destroys everything. Then Thor: The Dark World happens, which brings the ether back into the, we see the ether kind of hitting London. So then all of a sudden now there's another existential threat, right? Or just extraterrestrial threat on the planet. Then Captain America: Winter Soldier happens. We find out SHIELD is infiltrated by Hydra. And we know that Howard Stark worked a lot with SHIELD. So obviously he could sit there in that point and go, ooh, crap, SHIELD's kind of in this disarray. There's these problems. The Avengers are needed. I better start making some more suits.
Yeah, so it's not really I don't really have a problem with them not really explaining it, because like you said, you could just put in your own storyline in there.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think. That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah.
So then moving on into 2016, it's Captain America: Civil War and Spider-Man: Homecoming. So Spider-Man: Homecoming takes place right after the events of Civil War, not a year later. Which, that makes sense. But there was that big gap of 8 years after the attack on New York.
Under ruse.
Yeah, but remember that, though? Remember in Spider-Man: Homecoming when it started off by saying 8 years after the attack on New York?
So is that right? Did they get it right according to this timeline?
No. They cut that timeline in half. They officially retconned that, because when that happened, that threw everybody off the movie. It was like, it starts off and you got, like the cleanup crew after the Battle of New York, and they get fired because SHIELD comes in to take over everything.
Yeah.
And then it goes 8 years later, and you're going like, but wait a minute, that happened in 2012. This would put it at 2020. What? Like, it really, when I was watching the movie for the first time, I was so excited to see Spider-Man Homecoming. That took me completely out of the movie. And it wasn't just me, it was a lot of people got taken out of that whole experience because that was just nagging at them in the back of their mind. Like, why is this happening? What the hell's going on? Then, of course, you've got 2016, 2017, somewhere in there was Doctor Strange. So somewhere after the events probably of Spider-Man Homecoming, because Spider-Man Homecoming happened technically in like, June, because it was at the end of the school year sort of thing.
Yeah.
There would be, or no, Homecoming is at the early part. Was in the fall. It would be in the fall. Because it's home, if it's okay, I don't want to get into that too much. I'm diving too much into high school life. But Doctor Strange was 2016, 2017. We know that because there was a fair amount of time there. And then 2017 was Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, and Avengers Infinity War. So even though Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War came out this year, they're still set in 2017.
And let me ask you, is this an official timeline or was this a leak?
This is a leak from the first 10 years source book. All right, so it's called Marvel the first 10 years.
Okay, so let's venture into a little bit of maybe spoiler territory. There's been a lot of rumors.
At this point, it's kind of spoiler territory.
Well, there's been a lot of rumors about time traveling in the next Avengers film.
Oh, no, it's not even rumors. It's confirmed. It's absolutely confirmed at this point.
So theoretically, this entire thing could be thrown off. And what you were talking about with Spider-Man Homecoming could actually be what really happened?
Well, no, it's not going to be. They're not going to change everything. What this is going to do is this is only going to just, it's not going to change if let's say they do time travel and does change events after they've happened. It's not going to change our perception of when they happened. That's going to stay the same. But the thing here to remember, though, is that like there's one movie missing off of this list, and that is Ant-Man and the Wasp. But spoiler alert, it takes place after the events, up into the events of Avengers Infinity War, right? Like before it, and then up to when it ends.
What about Captain America? I mean, Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel will take place. Because they haven't released it yet, they probably haven't put it. Well, keep in mind this is the first 10 years. So they're probably counting even their Ant-Man and the Wasp because it came out after, a May of 2018. So that way it was like, it was just past the 10-year mark, although I don't think anyone would really buy that as being an excuse not to include it. But yeah, I think that's why. But then again, we know that it's like 1993 is when Captain Marvel is supposed to take place. So they've already said Captain Marvel. Hold on.
So we're expecting this to be Captain Marvel will lie between the first Avenger and Iron Man, basically.
Yeah, it's gonna be closer to Iron Man than it is gonna be anything else. So it's clearly that. But I would also, that's what they're doing is they're going to establish that. And then I think going forward, everything's going to be done like in kind of real time. But that was actually one of the things I love about the MCU is that I feel that it's persistent. I feel that it's always been persistent and that it kind of plays in with where things are in our world. It plays in where things are kind of where we are now. But then again, it's also like, but looking at, the events of, this is a big problem too, because they have the MCU, but then you've also got S.H.I.E.L.D. and you've got, Agent Carter and you've got the Marvel series and Runaways and Cloak and Dagger.
But the Netflix Marvel series are not part of the cinematic universe, right?
Well, not yet. I mean, no, come on. Like, let's be realistic. They totally are. They just they're just not being exploited as such, right? Because in the Marvel series, there's tons of references to the attack on New York, right? Like there's tons of references to all that stuff. I'm pretty sure even like Jessica Jones encountered in season 1 might have encountered somebody with the Chitauri like weaponry or something.
But I've never really heard them name drop. They always call it for example, if they're referring to the Hulk, they'll call him the green guy or the event in New York. They'll never really say like.
Well, no, they said Captain America and Jessica Jones season 2.
That's cool.
Because it's like the one guy, like this one little kid's like talking to Jessica, and it's all like, "Oh, do you know Captain America?" And she's all, "Ugh," her typical fashion. But I mean, it definitely runs in the same timeline. Like we all know it runs. We all know it runs parallel. But it's just, I mean, I don't want to fully go into the full politics of it, but this has everything to do with New York versus L.A. LA does the movies, New York does the TV, and they don't communicate. So what was once a cohesive thing has not been cohesive for quite some time. And it basically at this point goes to the fans like you and me to kind of debate over the logistics of what is or isn't considered canon in the MCU. Which is why I think that the Disney Play service that's going to be coming out, or Disney Plus, sorry, bringing the shows over to that is going to then establish a clear timeline that is going to be under Kevin Feige control. And that's kind of how we have to view it, unfortunately, is what he says is the timeline is what the timeline is. So if he sat there and said the Marvel series and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are not the timeline, then we'd have no choice but to remove them from canon.
Look at this great accomplishment. We got 10 years of the MCU, and there's barely any contradictions. Just like you said, they have their stuff together. Look at that. It's incredible.
No, they really do. And that's actually one of the really cool things about it is that they have been able to kind of establish this timeline that over, I mean, we're talking about the official timeline, but it's very much, it's more like kind of nostalgic to go back and go, oh yeah, there's when this came out, but also looking at it and going, okay, here's where they maybe made a couple mistakes, but here's what plays out pretty well, and then discussing the particulars. But I mean, that's where we are. This is leaked, so this could change. This could not be real, but everyone's at this point kind of reporting it as fact. When the official book comes out here pretty soon, I think we'll get a better look, a more confirmed look. But this is just it's been fun to discuss.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking at this list. I'm really missing some of these films, especially The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, that one. That was a good movie. Never got the love. Never got the love.
It's also a Universal property, I think.
It is. It was a it was a co-production that they'd worked in there, which is one of the reasons why we haven't seen
a standalone. So Universal owns the rights to a standalone Hulk movie, but Disney's allowed to use the character in group films.
Exactly. So
here comes the X-Men. Let's see what that brings.
Nothing. They're going to recast all that, but that's a discussion for another day.
Hey, I'm just trying to front sell so I could come back to the show and maybe we could talk about the X-Men next time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we'll have tons of discussions. Anyway, no, thank you very much for being here. You guys should go check out Nuke the Fridge on Twitter. Check out nukethefridge.com. You can always check if you live in, I guess, like kind of big city areas, get your hands on some free screenings because he gives away a lot of those.
Thank you.
So yeah, check that out and be sure to thumbs up the video and subscribe if you're new. I'll talk to you guys all later. Have yourself a fantastic day and peace out.